We're discussing financial options for those out of work waiting for financial relief. That's today on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstat, Cashman Equipment, and additional supporting sponsors.
Nearly 370,000 Nevadans filed for unemployment this year, with many more struggling to get through to the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation. For those that have been able to file, only about half have had claims that have been processed, leaving an unprecedented number of Nevadans without an unemployment check. Additionally, the IRS recently reported that nearly a half of Americans are still awaiting their stimulus checks. For those waiting on unemployment or relief funding, financial resources are available. We're discussing some of those options with Scott Arkills, President and CEO of Silver State Schools Credit Union, and Rosa Hall, Housing Counselor and Nevada 211 Outreach Coordinator for Money Management International. So I wanted to start right away by adding to what we had in the intro a little bit. It's something that, Scott, we had talked about prior to recording here. Small and large businesses are also waiting for relief funding. That's critical because a lot of their employees are also in a holding pattern as well to see if they are on payroll. So many variables here of why so many Nevadans are on a holding pattern. But regardless of the reason, it's the first of the month right now. A lot of Nevadans have been out of work for quite a bit of time. Things are now becoming due. Rosa, I want to start with you. And first off, thank you so much for being here today and representing Money Management International. We really appreciate it. Let's talk about the 211 resource that you are managing here and resource calls. I mean, are you seeing a lot of inquiries specifically about this challenging interim period here between first payments coming in and or receiving those payments?
Yes, there is a lot of phone calls, especially people are very concerned about how they're going to pay their rent or mortgage, utilities, and feed their family. So we have received a lot of phone calls of people that are concerned that they're not receiving their unemployment or their stimulus check in the mail, or even some of them about their tax return that they haven't received. So there is a lot of concern because there is no income, and people are very concerned about how they're going to keep up with their family with the roof and food on the table.
And what are some of the major challenges dealing with right now? Let's talk about the unemployment side. First off, are most people just in a holding pattern? They filed their claims and they're kind of waiting, or are they having a lot of struggles and trying to get those claims through that system still?
There's both situation, that could happen. Most people are having trouble on filing, and their claim stays on review. Some of them that we have spoken to, some of them have reported they're over 5 weeks trying to get in contact with unemployment. And when they get to the phone number that they have to call, they said the queue is full for the day. You have to try, and then they try the next day. And when it's like 8 o'clock, it's already full again. That's when they start. And they send emails and they complain that they're not getting any answers. And one thing that we do tell them when they call us is we kind of tell them there is a YouTube channel for unemployment, which when I spoke to Rosa Mendez from unemployment, she said that a lot of times the reason why their claim is not going through is because they don't follow the steps. You have to follow steps to go to the next one and then to the next one in order to get the claim to go through. And if you don't know how to do it, then you ended up getting an error, which will have to be reviewed. And once all the accounts has to be reviewed by an actual person, so that's where, I do believe that's where the delay is coming from, according to her. So one thing we always tell our callers, go to the YouTube channel for unemployment, watch the videos, and make sure that you're following the steps, and make sure that all the information that you are putting there is according to what unemployment is telling people to do specifically right now, because nobody can do their weekly work search, including that there is information how to overwrite the weekly job search, but you have to go on their website and you have to read through the documents that they have there. And that's one thing that we tell our callers.
Yes, and patience is extremely key right here. And let's just face the facts here. The Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation are inundated with calls. It's a capacity issue here. On the IRS side, it's exactly the same. Overcapacity, which is why a lot of those stimulus checks are not going through right now. Scott, thanks for being on as well. One of our largest local lenders. We very much appreciate having Silver State Schools Credit Union here. I want to ask you, with your members, what are some of the challenges you're seeing when they're calling in looking for some support right now?
Yeah, some of the biggest challenges are, from our perspective, is again, once again, trying to get through to unemployment. That's probably the largest frustration is they not getting assistance yet. I just read yesterday that 14 million people nationwide are that are on job furloughs have not received any funds at all in the form of stimulus checks or unemployment checks, and so people just don't have the income that they're used to having, and they want answers. And so, one of the things that we spoke about previously, and that's very important, is we encourage all of our members and certainly consumers at the banks as well to call into your lenders. And speak to them and find out what resources are available so we can help you out proactively, because there's lots of things we can do.
Yeah, that's a great point. The individuals that are calling in, is there any rhyme or reason to demographics here, income background, race, ethnicity? We hear seniors, of course, are at risk when we're looking at the health concerns here, but maybe they're more financially at risk too. Are you seeing any consistencies there, Scott?
It's pretty much across the board. Unfortunately, again, one of the things that we're hearing out there is the job losses are going to be close to the 1930s depression, not the recession level. It's not even a good comparison now. These are depression level job losses that are hitting. And so when you ask about demographics, really it's across the board, and it is a little bit frustrating. Certainly, seniors are at risk from that perspective, but because and in fact, if you look at it, Las Vegas is probably one of the most at-risk cities in the whole country because of the number of hospitality and service-related jobs, and that's the sector that's gotten really hit the hardest now.
And Scott, let's talk about your sector then, and the impact on your sector and the credit unions right here and the lenders in general. We're talking about layoffs. We're talking about loss of business. Are you experiencing those things in the lending sector as well?
We are not at the credit union. We made so we report into the Nevada Finance and Insurance Division. And I will tell you, we were named as one of the essential businesses right away. Obviously, one of the biggest things that need to have an act in things like these are their money and their finances, and making sure that they can reach us either online or come into our branches. So credit unions, by and large, stayed open, and all credit unions, regardless, have kept their drive-throughs open. But many of us have decided to keep our offices nearly full-time stature. Now, we have some limitations for social distancing, and though I'll be very frank with you on that. It's important to follow the social distancing rules, and so most unions have kind of allowed for two members at a time in the branch when we do have branch visits, and that's again to obey the social distancing requirements. And what we've done, we've found this to work out really well. So we have receptionists at the door, puts hand sanitizer on the members' hands right when they come in, and we ask them what they need. We ask if there's something that we can help them and what their need is right then. Greet them, send them up to the line, and then it's amazing. Members have been very patient on waiting outside, and so we try to cycle them through very quickly as well. And I will tell you, our online applications, and this is across the board at all the credit unions. I'm I'm the board chairman for the Nevada Credit Union League, and so I keep in touch with my peers quite often. We've all received a 250% increase in call-in volume to our call centers, as well as chat rooms and text messaging. Uh, so again, there are some good things, and our service levels. We've put an army of people on all of those different various pieces, and the reason is because we don't want people to feel frustrated or more frustrated than they already have. When they go to their unemployment offices and that kind of stuff. So we know that frustrations are high, stress levels are high. So it's up to us to make sure that we do that. And my peers are the same.
Yeah, and let's talk about maybe reducing some of those frustrations, and there's no way of doing that than finding some solutions here. So let's talk about maybe some of those immediate solutions that we can do in this interim period we're talking about. Here on Nevada Week, we have already had a show talking more broadly about financial management and support. That was at the peak of our unemployment claims and when the CARES Act was first signed. Of course, now we're talking about a much more narrowed focus here before relief comes in. Rosa, I want to start with you. What advice, if I were to come to you right now and I needed some form of cash in hand over the next couple weeks, what advice would you provide me?
Okay, there are some people that are looking into the cash advance with their credit card, but that's something you have to be really careful because besides the upfront fee, the interest rates are really high. And one thing that we are suggesting people is to contact their bank and see what they can offer them. Some banks, some institution, they are offering some type of extensions on the credit for their clients, and try not to cut the cost. Cut whatever you can. Take a look into your budget before you even get more into debt.
Scott, the perfect transition here. You've already mentioned your recommendation already to get in touch with your bank or your local lender. What opportunities do you have just at Silver State Credit Union right now on the personal loan front then?
Yeah, on the personal loan front, great question. One of the first things that we rolled out, and this was literally a day after the stay-at-home order was put into place, and this all started blowing up, is we came out with an emergency relief loan, literally at a 2.99% interest rate, so a very, very low interest rate, certainly lower than our cost of funds. And so taking a loss on that, set it up for a longer term, 24-month term, so the repayment cycle is longer, and that to $2,000. Again, our job is to put people in a position to. It's almost like a bridge loan to help them out. It's not to put them in harm's way, and so we are helping them with that regard. So that was one thing that Silver State Schools Credit Union put out. To date, we've done approximately 313,000 of those dollars in loans from that, and so we've had a really, really strong response to that. And again, that's our solution to not going to a payday lender.
And you're stressing members, and I want to just touch upon that a little bit. If you are not a member of the credit union now, can you become a member and then have some of these benefits connected?
Absolutely. At Silver State Schools Credit Union, if you're related in any way, if you have school-aged kids that are in education, you are free to join our credit union. And so we don't have an open field of membership. It is secured by the education community. But if you're a staff member or a teacher, professor, an administrator of CCSD or any of the area colleges and universities, you also are able to get in. And not to do a plug for PBS right now, but also we have a partnership with PBS where if you become a friend of PBS, then that's another way to get into. If you don't have those school-aged children, or if you don't meet our other criteria, you can also join through PBS. And we always suggest that people do that. Number one, it supports PBS. But secondly, and just as importantly, it allows them to access to our services.
I want to come back, Scott. One other thing that you mentioned before, back to the payday lend, the short-term payday lending, the short-term turnaround there. That is a major benefit and reason why so many do go and access payday lending. For the relief program that you have at the credit union, is a turnaround just as quick as a payday loan?
It is. In fact, we've got, that's the great thing about being named as an essential business. We have full staff working in consumer lending and mortgage lending right now. And as well as our collections staff, and we actually call it credit resolutions because we're trying to come up with resolutions. Not to us, it's not collections. And so, from our perspective, we try to help members out. So, our turnaround time is very, very quick.
Now, we're talking a lot about lending, obviously, but those aren't all the other resources that are available to us. Rosa's already mentioned several of those. Previous Nevada weeks over the last months, we have focused a lot of our attention on the different community resources we have. Let's take a quick look at some of those discussions.
This truly is unprecedented times, but it's important to note that the need is there.
With many local businesses closed, a record-shattering 360,000 Nevadans have filed for unemployment, with many more still waiting to get through the phone lines. As our local economy struggles, many nonprofit organizations have stepped up to help those in need.
We are, because of the pandemic, it's unlike anything we've ever experienced. We all know that. All the nonprofit community is coming together.
United Way of Southern Nevada has created an asset map to match people with resources to fill their needs.
It's like their resume. It's a nonprofit's resume. Here's what I'm doing. This is where I'm doing it. This is why I'm doing it. And this is what we need. And this is what we have to deploy. And this is the area of our community that we're working in.
United Way also has raised over $3 million to provide food, housing, and utility assistance to Southern Nevadans. To see if you qualify for the Emergency Assistance and Community Needs Fund, dial 211.
So Opportunity Alliance has pivoted our entire agency efforts towards the financial fallout from the COVID-19 crisis. And one of those new program developments is our volunteer financial navigator services.
Opportunity Alliance's new volunteer financial navigator program is free to use and can help you manage your money during the crisis.
Our call center is receiving probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20,000 calls a month right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
Three Square is making sure every Las Vegan is staying fed, regardless of their financial situation. They have created an interactive map so you can find the closest distribution site. All distributions are without personal contact, so you can feel safe while staying fed.
We are doing those all by drive up. And so somebody will just simply drive up, open their trunk, and we'll put the food in the trunk, and away they go. They don't ever leave the car.
Between our main office and the two self-help centers we run, we are fielding about 500 calls a day from very frantic people with all of the questions that you would think, unemployment, foreclosure, eviction, but we're getting questions on, we had a woman call the other day who asked if we could help her locate toilet paper. So it really is running the gamut.
Legal Aid Center is closed to in-person visits, but the organization is offering a variety of online tools to help you with a variety of legal issues, including eviction and repayment plans.
We are trying really hard to make sure that that toolkit is up to date, and it covers everything from unemployment to food assistance to rental information and eviction information.
To access all the resources discussed, visit our website, vegaspbs.org/COVID-19. Rosa, I want to start with you. Money Management International 211 connects and also provides a lot of counseling to a multitude of resources, everything from mental health services to childcare to financial management. Let's talk about, we just saw some of the resources that are available in the community, but let's talk about some of the advice that you would provide too. And I ask you a similar question to what I asked you on the lending side. If I'm to come to you and maybe I don't need or don't feel comfortable getting a short-term loan, but I still need some help and support, what's some of the advice you can give?
Depending what your age is, there are different programs, and obviously we're going to go over the programs that we have. People, when they call us, sometimes they are like, the first time they ask for help. So they're even like sometimes feel embarrassed about calling us and asking for help. So we kind of ask them, are you working? So how do you rent a house? Are you being able to pay for it? So then we go over the programs that we have for rental assistance. And then after that, I was like, how about the utilities? We do talk to the clients. We ask them, and then we offer as well assistance for utility assistance. And then obviously, it's one thing that we like to touch when we're talking to the clients. I was like, so do you have food? Do you have ways of purchasing food? Then we kind of like introduce little by little the assistance that we have.
And the personal contact is very important. Of course, we're in the world of social distancing here. Being able to talk specifically to someone is key on many different levels. So we appreciate that service. We just have a few more minutes. Scott, I want to move on to a little bit of advice we might be able to give to reopening phase. This is being talked about, of course, across the media. Our state has outlined at least the first criteria to get us to phase 1 of reopening. We don't know the specifics of what that reopening plan would actually look like yet, but we know that this could potentially complicate matters a lot more for Nevadans. First off, we're looking at phasing reemployment in. That might not be where full-time employees have part-time work, but maybe not full-time work, but yet now they're known to have unemployment benefits coming in. Moratoriums might end, so bills might be due, and we still have schools that are closed here. A lot of families are going to be trying to work and still have to educate their children. Let's talk about planning and prioritizing then, Scott. What can we do now? What is really important to lessen maybe the challenges we might feel in the next several weeks?
Yeah, that's a great question, and from our perspective, it is definitely a transitionary phase that we're going through. I will tell you one thing that Silver State Schools Credit Union just did very proudly is the board and the executive team made a decision to actually gift CCSD $150,000 to provide the purchase of Chromebooks for students. One of the most important things to Dr. Jara, the superintendent of schools for CCSD, is obviously to make sure that our children have access to online lending, or not online lending. I guess we're doing that, but online education still. And so that is a really, really important part of that, because you'll hear anecdotally, throughout the press right now, is that different states should send the children back to school before that. That's not necessarily the best thing to do from a social distancing perspective. So what other alternatives do we have? And some of that is to make sure that, again, we can provide alternatives to our students to make sure that they're safe, but they also have access to learning utilities. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important. The other thing is part of what you're covering and is the unknown factor. And so I believe that regulators, in the union arena and even in the banking arena, are going to I think they're going to have to relax criteria for even further deferrals and forbearances in the future. These are, I always say this to our employees and to our members. These times we have never seen anything like this in most of our lifetimes. And so how do we adjust to that? Quite frankly, it's making sure that we continue to have those resources. We have one of the things that we're very, very fortunate in the state of Nevada is to have a very strong congressional and Senate delegation that cares about, our the consumer base here, affordable housing consistently. How can you pay your bills? How do you have your income? How, what is happening there? And so one of those phases that we're talking about, actually, the Credit Union League is working with right now with the governor as well, state representatives, to make sure that we might be able to assist with unemployment bridge funding as well. And so that's been a big transitionary thing too, because again, to your point, we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns here in what will happen in phase 0, phase 1, phase 2, 3, and 4. So what do? We adjust as best we can from that perspective. And so that's the best answer I can really give you. I believe you'll continue to see support. I know you will from credit unions, and I think by and large from most financial institutions and banks as well.
That's a great point. We're out of time, but I think that's a great way to end, especially with the main piece being that our relief and what we are putting forward, both policy and any type of systemic changes, need to continue throughout reopening and probably way beyond that as recovery continues for potentially multiple years. Great last point. Scott, Rosa, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Nevada Week. For any of the resources we've discussed today, please visit our website at vegaspbs.org/Nevada-week. You can also find us on social media at Nevada Week. Stay healthy, stay safe, and stay strong.